All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody. This is Tom Coyle, and joining me is Antony Haynes, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about cybersecurity, what you need to know, and maybe some things you can do right now to fix some problems without spending a lot of money. All right, Antony, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, as Tom mentioned, I'm Antony Haynes, and think of me as a lawyer who is also a computer science professor. And so what I'm going to discuss very briefly are some of the key issues of why cybersecurity is critical for small and medium-sized businesses. You have to understand in general that the internet was not designed for security. It was designed for openness and sharing. And as a result, what we're doing now is we are in the process of hardening the internet and also better integrating security into our software and hardware infrastructure for the internet. But remember that as a small business, hackers are looking for the weakest link, and that's going to be you. So in this environment, it's critical to recognize that cybersecurity is an area that is critical for both small and medium-sized businesses. It's not just for the big boys. Last year, 60% of all targeted attacks struck small and medium-sized organizations. 76%.
If I could just add in real quick, one of the things is that the smaller businesses are also more of a target because everyone thinks that the big businesses, they can afford all the latest security hardware, and smaller businesses who generate a reasonable profit, these are valuable targets. I mean, for instance, maybe you're a window cleaning business and you do window cleaning for all the the high-end homeowners in your area. Well, you've got credit card information of these people who then, so they may not necessarily care about your business per se, but they're concerned about the people. They want the people who use your business. And Andy will talk in a little more detail here. You're going to find that most of the time, people aren't hacking passwords per se or things of that nature. They're getting into your system because you inadvertently give them the information that allows them to get into your system.
Absolutely correct. Remember that last year, Target had a breach where tens of millions of credit card numbers and home addresses for mailing addresses and phone numbers and email addresses were stolen by cyber hackers, and that Target itself was not the source of the breach. It was a third-party subcontractor that had weak security through which the hackers gained access into Target's networks and were able to compromise the information.
You're going to find that
cyber criminals are looking for you. They're looking for the small and medium-sized business. 72% of small business owners that suffer a major data loss will go out of business. That last year, Target had a breach where tens of millions of credit card numbers and Okay, I think we had a little technical difficulties there.
What happened was I had two. And I'll explain this. I had two browsers open, so apparently it was actually kind of repeating itself. So I closed all that. I apologize for the difficulties. And again, here the challenges of technology. There's always something, so you got to stay on top of it.
Well, here's the important takeaway for small business owners: is that 3/4 of the small businesses which suffer a data loss that is significant will go out of business within 2 years. So cybersecurity really matters. If you have a substantial data loss, you have a high probability of going out of business within 2 years. And you think to yourself, well, I've never noticed any problems with my internet security, therefore I'm okay, correct? Well, no. FBI Director James Comey has stated that there are two kinds of companies in the United States. There are those who've been hacked and those who don't know they've been hacked. So you may be in one category or the other, but you probably have been hacked.
And this is something that's actually very critical for you to understand, is that, again, people look at American industries in particular as the gold standard of how to do business. They figure rather than doing the innovation themselves, it's easier to steal it. And all your information is stored on this electronic database. And this is the hardest thing to spend money on, because how do you know you've been hacked? And I think that's what we're going to, and you will get more into this, as Anthony's giving some great background information here. Because ultimately there are some things you can do that vary in scale of cost. You can sit there and buy an real expensive product, like Tanium is a company that's out there with software security, but most companies, small businesses can't afford that. But maybe just tightening up some procedures that your employees use in the workplace could solve a great deal of your problems. And with that, back to Antony.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for the preview, Tom. I just want to give you a very brief overview of how big this problem is. Every day, the Pentagon sees 10 million cyber attacks. A single energy company, British Petroleum, fights off 50,000 cyber attacks each day. And last year alone, as we mentioned earlier, Target announced bad hackers stole personal information for 110 million accounts. And not only that, they got into, at JP Chase Morgan, 83 million accounts, and at Home Depot, 56 million accounts. So yes, it's the big boys, but it's also the small boys. In April of this year, Symantec warned that small and medium-sized businesses often have fewer resources to invest in security, and many are still not adopting the best basic practices like blocking executable files and screensaver email attachments. This puts not only the big businesses, but the business partners and the small business at a much higher risk. The bottom line here is that anything that's on your network, whether it's a smartphone or a fitness tracker, can be hacked, and therefore it will be hacked. So as a small to medium-sized business owner, it is imperative that you adopt the basic best practices. Now,
I just want to drop in here real quick too. It's not just hacking you're worried about. Now you have, I mean, industrial espionage is big business, and there could be people inside your company taking this stuff out of there. Now I'll use Edward Snowden as an example. Now, many of you, I'm not going to get into the whole politics of Snowden, whether he did the right or the wrong thing. Just the fact that he was in a large organization that had a lot of data, information that they did not want made known available, and he stole that information or took that information out and exposed it. So these are also, that's also the way you do it. Who's that disgruntled employee who's going to sit there and release that information? Who is somebody who's on the inside? Maybe somebody, if you get really into some of the high-end intellectual property businesses, you know, someone might be on somebody's payroll to take information out from your company.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that gets us back into the idea that cybersecurity is for everyone. Your poor hygiene impacts everybody who is connected to your network. And so every single link in the chain has got to be strong. Your information in your business is valuable, whether it's your business plans or your Rolodex of clients or some trade secret. There is a market for your critical information, and you've got to look at protecting it. So a good plan for cybersecurity interoperates with both internet privacy issues and intellectual property protection. Remember, your business is based on trust. That's the key need that your online presence satisfies. Customers trust you with their most sensitive personal information, from home addresses to email addresses to phone numbers and credit card numbers and so on. So it's critical that every company, regardless of the size of the company, has a unified security plan that integrates threat intelligence with risk management, with training and education, and the best technical defenses. So, how are you at risk? There are 3 waves of bad actors. The first wave has almost subsided entirely, and it consisted of nuisance hackers. These were the cyber vandals, the graffiti writers who liked to deface your corporate website, but they did little financial harm. Their goal was to have a joyride at your embarrassment and to show off to their peers in the hacking and virus community. But we're now in the second and third wave. The second wave are hackers looking for financial gain. These are cyber criminals. These are highly skilled, organized criminal elements that are using the tools of malicious hacking to basically steal from you, to steal your money, to steal your information, or to steal your client data. And then the third wave are called advanced persistent threats. This is the espionage, where they're trying to steal your critical intellectual property. Sometimes a national government may be behind it, like China or North Korea, for example. As a matter of fact, a security expert, Bruce Shiner, has stated that only amateurs attack machines. Professionals target people. And so when you craft your security policy and your overall security plan, understand that it does you no good to buy really good technology and really good software and hardware if there's a lack of training and education for the people to ensure that they understand what behaviors and practices allow for properly developing, integrating, and handling information and internet security.
Which makes this a problem that you can recognize, because as you know, as a business owner or a business leader, most of your problems are people-related problems. As Anthony just said, cybersecurity is no different. Sometimes people are intimidated because it gets technical. There's people are not comfortable with technical language. But what it comes down to today, as Anthony just said, I can't stress this enough. It's people problems that cause this.
So let's talk about the three categories of people. So one category are the unauthorized users. These are the quote unquote bad hackers who they plant malicious code somewhere on the internet and they wait for you to find and activate it in an email attachment or a malicious website or a dangerous link in a website, or they want you to inadvertently download a harmful program. The second group are the social networkers and social engineers. So they go to your LinkedIn profile, they go to your Facebook page, they go to your Twitter account, they go to your Pinterest account, and they scrape information about your mother's maiden name from your family tree on Facebook, or they scrape information about who your friends are or what your title is, and they use that to make a phone call or send an email to your organization and pretend to be an insider. And they use this social engineering by scraping information from your publicly available data to get this trusted access to your network. Then they're able to escalate it and get true insider access. The third category of people are the malicious insiders. These are the people who are your employees, who you hired, who you thought you could trust, who have decided that they are going to quit, they've been fired, they're disgruntled, or they just want to expose you the way Edward Snowden exposed the NSA, and they're going to take your key information and provide it to someone else at your detriment. So, what is it that the bad hackers want? Again, 55% cybercrime. They want money. 30% hacktivism. Think the Sony email links. Think Edward Snowden NSA. And about 10% espionage. Think they want to know the secret plans you have for the Coca-Cola formula, or whatever it is the secret ingredients to your business, or how you actually get your customers and develop your products. So what are the costs to your business? Well, you have the direct financial costs, which could be in the billions of dollars for large businesses, and it could be for a small to medium-sized business that in 2 years you go bankrupt and you close your doors. A second cost is the theft of trade secrets, sensitive information, or critical intellectual property. A third cost is damage to your brand or your reputation. A fourth cost is fraud. You could also be exposed to a lawsuit and have litigation risk. You could have a loss of shareholder value. For small companies, you probably have a family-owned business. Well, the value of your partner's stakes in your business will decrease, and you could also be extorted by the revelation or by the possession of sensitive internal information. Okay, so here's where the rubber meets the road. What are the big cyber attack trends in cybersecurity? There are a couple of key trends that I like to highlight in this particular conversation. The first is zero-day attacks. The way things used to be is that there would be a virus or a worm or a Trojan horse or some other malicious software, malicious code, and then the antivirus writers and the firewall writers would understand the signature for this code, this fingerprint for it, and they would write a scanner or a tool to detect that fingerprint and thereby block it. That worked fairly well, and indeed it's worked so well that it's almost completely stopped cyber vandalism. These are the graffiti writers and the kids on joyrides on your website. Unfortunately, we now have the zero-day attacks. And so you've heard of these vulnerabilities like Heartbleed and Shellsock and Poodle. And what they are is they are fundamental flaws in the underlying architecture of the internet. A utility like Secure Socket Layer or HTML or Java code or ActiveX and Microsoft Windows products. But there's some critical structural vulnerability that no one knew about. And so the zero-day attack takes advantage of this basic structural vulnerability before there being any patches to the vulnerability, and they go ahead and get access to the network that way. This is a big deal. For example, it took over 204 days last year before vendors had a patch for Heartbleed. It took over 22 days and over 53 days to develop patches for Shell Shock and Poodle. So there could be a substantial gap in time between the discovery of a basic vulnerability in your software systems and your hardware systems and the availability of a patch. A second kind of trend in cyber attacks is what they call spear phishing. And so what you do with spear phishing is, as an attacker, I will craft an email that appears to be from a legitimate source. Perhaps it's from your bank at Wells Fargo, or perhaps it's from inside your company. And I have enough internal jargon and information that it seems to be from a credible insider. Then send you this email using stolen email accounts from one corporate victim to then leapfrog up the ladder of the hierarchy to my next target in the corporate chain. A third kind of attack is called a watering hole attack. This is where I wait for you to go out to a web page or to click on a link in an email message and then go to a particular location on the internet, and I don't attack you immediately. Instead, I slowly collect data over time, and then I eventually draw more and more employees to a particular location. And once I've reached critical mass, then I grab the data I'm actually looking for. A fourth problem that's very interesting and problematic is Trojanized software updates. So you are patching Windows XP or Windows 7 or Windows 8, and you download the patch for a vulnerability. Well, a Trojanized update is you download the patch and it's actually been hacked. It's actually a corrupt patch. So you think you're patching your operating system, but in actuality, you're installing a backdoor to allow attackers to gain access to your network. And then the final trend that I find interesting, and that should be something that small business owners in particular should be aware of, is called ransomware and malvertising. If you saw an episode of The Good Wife last year, you would have seen a law firm had its entire client database and their legal paperwork held hostage by a virus, and they had to pay $50,000 within 24 hours to get their files back, or they would be deleted. And so that's the current form. Another form is you may be surfing the internet when a window comes up on your screen saying, warning, the FBI has detected that you are surfing a child pornography site, and you need to pay an immediate fine of $500 to get your computer access back and not be prosecuted for the illegal possession of child porn. So these are two different ways that you can use ransomware and advertising to trap somebody and to really disrupt a small business. Well, this leads to the question, if there's so much problem in cybersecurity and it's such a big threat, why aren't you, as a small business owner or medium-sized business owner, taking action? Well, there's three excuses that we often hear in a security environment. The first excuse is that, well, network security is too complex and it takes too much work. Well, guess what? Setting it up is just a simple step-by-step procedure. And if you, as a non-technical business owner, feels challenged or overwhelmed, it's very easy to outsource this to a security provider. As a matter of fact, Tom and I are here to help you do just that. A second excuse we often hear is that it's just an added expense. Yes, like home insurance or car insurance or key person insurance, it is an expense, but it's a necessary one, because you could lose your entire business if you don't make the financial investment in security.
And just one thing I want to chime in about that is there's a lot of people. First, I love the show Shark Tank, and one of the things, it's a different set of decisions here. But you look at these people, and the shark might say, "Okay, I want 40% equity," and someone says, "Well, I don't want to give up my equity," and I look at that, I want to scream, because it's an example of bad decision-making thought, because they'll say, okay, you made $100,000 last year. So you want 100% ownership of a $100,000 business, or do you want 60% ownership of a multi-million-dollar business? Well, I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer, but sometimes people don't think of that way. And what Anthony's saying, it's the same thing for cybersecurity. You're always thinking about, the cost, and you're thinking of the right now, but you're not thinking of what's the risk. I mean, the cost is very minimal when you consider the risk of reputation. If you lose customers because they figure they can't trust you for securing their data, losing money, causing your business to collapse. I mean, when you think of all the things that can happen, the cost really is very minimal in terms of the risk versus gain.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the third excuse we often hear is that, well, cybersecurity, that's only for the big companies. Well, last year, 3/4 of small businesses and medium businesses reported a cybersecurity incident. And 60% of all cyber attacks are targeted to small and medium-sized businesses. So a common error in judgment that small and mid-sized business owners make is thinking that cyber attacks will launch only against big names in the industry. They aren't. Everyone is at risk.
And the small businesses, as we mentioned earlier, you're more likely to be attacked because, again, if think of this, like we're two former military guys. The military, you attack where the most vulnerable target that has the biggest impact. So, you look at some of and then you also have new hacker for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's a new hacker trying to show off their street credibility. Maybe it's just the fact that, well, okay, I could hack Sony again, but it's going to take me all this time to develop the new thing. I don't have a new 0-day software ready, but hey, you know what? I can go to Jim's tool shop over here and his custom tool business, and I can rip that to shreds with all the old software because they have nothing to detect the old stuff. I can use stuff from 10 years ago to hack that business.
Right, absolutely. So we get to the question of how do you protect yourself? How do you protect your company? Well, protecting yourself is pretty straightforward. Keep your antivirus and your firewall software up to date. You would have daily updates. And make sure you have strong passwords. We'll talk a little later about what that means. Make sure that you keep track of your credit card information and personal data about yourself. Back up your data. That's critical. And think about the circle of trust. In the movie Meet the Parents, Robert De Niro's character was an ex-government spook who was all about trust. And are you in the circle of trust? Well, think to yourself, is this website or this email from somebody I trust and know that I can rely upon? If the answer is no, don't open the email, don't click on the link, don't go to the website. And then also,
on that run point, if you're using social media at work, if you get the random friend request from somebody on Facebook that you have no common friends, you have no idea who this person is, it may not be a good idea to accept that friend request.
Absolutely. And that goes to LinkedIn as well. If you are a enterprising business owner who has had some modicum of success, you probably get dozens of LinkedIn requests every day. You should probably only accept a LinkedIn request with someone you've met in person or talked to with on the phone and have a relatively high degree of confidence that there's somebody who you trust. Random LinkedIn requests you should probably do.
Or somebody you rely on who gave the introduction on LinkedIn.
Right, or a good introduction. Good point. So how do you protect your company? Well, there's two parts here. There's the personnel and there's technology. And the personnel is perhaps the most critical piece, so let's discuss that first. The personnel piece is critical here. And the most important piece of your people is pre-employment screening. And I use the example of Edward Snowden in that the NSA had access to Edward Snowden's public postings on social media where he was vocally anti-government and was a contributor to sites which promoted great deal of openness and transparency and free access to information. And so given Snowden's quote unquote anti-government views, the NSA would have had a reason to be concerned about hiring him as a system administrator and as a network administrator for their most secure classified systems, the NSA. So
one more point on that is the other thing too is NSA outsourced that hiring to a contracting organization. And so, when you outsource that type of thing, it turned out they were taking shortcuts and not doing the proper background checks. So you're relying on people. So when you outsource tasks, make sure you really do due diligence on the person doing that hiring side and what their checks are.
Exactly. So the first step of protecting your company from cybersecurity attacks is hiring the right person for the right job. This is perhaps the most effective way for you to manage and protect your business. The second step is all employees must sign intellectual property, confidentiality, and non-disclosure agreements. That is the basic step. If you have no non-disclosure, non-compete, confidentiality, protect intellectual property agreements in place, then when your employees walk out the door, whether they were fired or they quit or they got lured away by a competitor, all of your critical trade secrets, your processes, your Rolodex, all this walks out the door with that employee. So Secondly, in addition to that, you have to have an information security policy. And when I say policy, I mean you need to require all employees keep personal web browsing at home. A great vulnerability is a habit of employees using work computers and work devices to engage in personal tasks. Now, clearly, there's going to be some give and take here, but in the era of bring your own devices, if employees have their own smartphones or their own laptops, let them use their personal devices for their personal web browsing and use their work devices for work web browsing. Prohibit printing out passwords or writing them down on sticky notes. Very basic, but I cannot tell you how many offices I've walked into where passwords were on a piece of paper or a sticky note and were handed about. As a matter of fact, I went to the dentist 2 days ago and they gave me the password to the Wi-Fi on a sheet of paper. So there you go. Require all employees only to use secure internet connections. This is HTTPS, which is the secure socket layers, to make sure that it's all encrypted. Ask your employees to speak up if they see something weird or wrong with their device, their laptop, their smartphone, their PC, and always lock your computer screen. A bad habit we have is to walk away from our desks and leave our computer screen unlocked, which means that the maid or the pizza delivery boy or your coworker who is actually a malicious insider can then use your machine, your device, to gain access to information that person should not have access to.
Not only that, there might be an attempt to blame you. For instance, sometimes there's an electronic trail, and someone might throw off the investigation on that person. Let's say Antony and I are at the same company. If I see Antony walk away from his computer, I can go on the server, do something, and then people are going to think it's Antony doing it, and all the attention's on Antony, and here I am over here, and no one's looking at me.
And by the time you've cleared your name, it's too late. The damage to your reputation will have been done.
Yes, indeed.
You want to have a data loss prevention plan and a disaster recovery plan. So what happens when your server gets fried? What happens when an employee steals the physical hard drive of your data? So you need to have backups and a way of transparently and smoothly taking your systems and your data and bringing them back online. Cloud storage and cloud backup is one potential solution. You need to limit and control the amount of information you share and how it is shared. Not every employee should know the system administrator password for your firewall. Not every employee should know what your bank account numbers are and have signing authority in your bank account. You've got to make sure that the right number of people, which is usually the smallest possible number of people, have access to critical data and that they are required to keep it confidential. Training and awareness for all employees is essential. User behavior is now the most critical component of information assurance and computer security. You must educate users on basic security protocols. You have to build a culture of IT security in your business. It's not that you buy a firewall or buy Norton antivirus or buy an intrusion detection and protection system and then you're done. No, no, no. That's just the basis. That's just the starting point. You've got to have a continual education of every employee about what they have to do. Do not write down passwords. When someone calls you on the phone, do not give out critical inside information. Don't use your computer to do web browsing. It's a continual process of creating a culture of IT security. And then in addition to this, you must have exit procedures for all employees. More than half of all malicious insiders steal their data within 1 week of exiting. So how long can a former employee have access to your network? Do you immediately delete their accounts or at least change their passwords? Or can they continue to have access after they have left? When an IT employee leaves in your company, do you routinely change all of your IT passwords or only some of them or none of them? So information assurance is not just a technical issue. It's not just for the techies and the nerds. It requires a multidisciplinary approach, a team that includes HR and IT and legal to create policies and to drive training and to monitor and reward employees appropriately for good behavior with respect to IT security.
Great points, Anthony. Great points.
So how do we protect your company with respect to the technology itself? Well, there's all kinds of technology out there, and I'm going to give you maybe 5 to 10 tips on the technology. But this is an area where many small business owners would feel more comfortable having an outside consultant like Tom and I come in and help out. And again, we're more than willing to do so. Okay, the first technology. You need to employ a barrier reef multi-layer defense in depth. What does that mean? It means you have multiple layers. You have a firewall on the outside of your network. You have a demilitarized zone, to use military jargon, where you have your web servers and some of your mail servers. So there's a firewall in the outside world. There's the thing that provides email and HTML, the web pages. And there's another firewall between the mail and web servers in the inside world. So this kind of gives you multiple layers. Then inside your network, every office or every component of your business would have their own internal firewalls, and you may have a firewall on the machine itself. If you've installed Apple OS, or if you installed Windows 7, then by default, it will have built into it a firewall, so you will have the defense in depth already as part of your Microsoft architecture. So the defense in depth includes regularly updated firewalls, as well as gateway antivirus programs, intrusion detection and protection systems, website vulnerability and malware protection, and web security solutions throughout the network. So again, give me a checklist. Here's your checklist right here. 1, get a firewall. If you don't have one, get it. 2, password protect your firewall. Don't leave the default password. 3, update your router firmware. 4, guard your Wi-Fi. One of the biggest vulnerabilities for businesses now is that everybody has Wi-Fi and the passwords are either not there or they're easy to guess. Block pings. Pings are a way of determining what machines exist on your network. Scan yourself. Have somebody internally or an outside ethical hacker scan your network for vulnerability. Lock down IP addresses. You don't need them, don't make them available. Use VLANs. Get an intrusion protection system. Get a web application firewall. Get a virtual private network, so when your employees are dialing in from the outside world to access your corporate servers, they have to go in through an encrypted secure connection, the VPN, and install antivirus software. So there you go. That's your 10-point checklist on how to do barrier reef defense in depth strategy. A second point on the technology, you want to monitor and track network intrusion attempts, vulnerabilities, and brand abuse. Okay, what does this mean? Every day, hackers are trying to determine what machines exist in your network. They're pinging you. Like submarines in World War II warfare, they're sending out these sonar pings, ping, ping, ping. You need to track that activity because that's a precursor to a later escalation to a higher threat attack. The ping is how you gather intelligence about the network. You want to know what vulnerabilities exist in your software system. So a tip here, constantly and aggressively update your operating system, your applications, your web browser, the plugins, all of your business software like Microsoft Office. You must constantly update it because those vulnerabilities become major holes. And
that's so easy because they tell you when they need updating.
Exactly. Just make it happen automatically. And then brand abuse is what happens if someone begins using your brand name or images or icons or logos on something that's not your company. They could begin using that as a way of gaining access to your network or perhaps spoofing your customers and getting your customer data. So you need to monitor and track all of this. You want to do more than just use antivirus because of the zero-day attacks and the advanced persistent threats. You need to use a whole class of tools called specialized threat analysis and protection tools. You want to implement secure socket layers on your website, and this way you can prevent a man-in-the-middle attack and malware infection. You want to encrypt all of your sensitive data, including customer data. Usually what happens with many companies is they ask their customers for emails and home mailing addresses and phone numbers and credit card data and social security numbers, and then they store it in a text file or a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet or a PowerPoint slide. It's not encrypted. You've got to actually encrypt this critical data so that if it gets stolen by a malicious insider or somebody who's engaging in cyber espionage or attacker, they have to then try to decrypt it. And if you've used a strong encryption, they won't be able to decrypt it in a time to make it useful. You can defeat them through strong encryption. You want to safeguard your email. And so you can actually encrypt your email And that is going to be one of the trends over the next couple of years, is that companies are moving towards encrypting their email. You want to have a data loss prevention software to prevent data exfiltration. So when malicious insiders are stealing your trade secrets or your IP or your sensitive data, then the data loss prevention software will actually figure out, oh, the Joint Strike Fighter's technical specification should only be on John Doe's computer, but now it's on Jane Doe's computer. How did it go from there? So you can actually track where the key data is. We've already discussed network segmentation. And this last idea is that not all of your data should be on the internet. Some of it should be kept cold in offline storage. Some of it's so important it should not ever be online. There should be an air gap between your data and anything that's electronic. And that will give you a very strong sense of security. Ensure that people bringing their own devices have adequate security. Make sure that you have strong passwords, which means 8 or more characters, letters and numbers, no reuse of passwords, no sharing for other uses or purposes or people, and every 90 days you have a new password. So a big trend now is that in addition to the password and the username, you have a personal identification number or a passphrase or some multi-factor authentication. You want to have a password manager which forces people to change their passwords every 90 days and make them compliant with this strong password protocol. In 2014, there was an assessment done of the 25 most popular passwords. And it was discovered that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and password were in the top position, which makes life far too easy for criminals.
It's like Spaceball. That's amazing. I have the same combination of my luggage.
Exactly. Prohibit the use of removable media like portable hard drives and USB keys. These carry viruses and they're a great vector for malicious software and Trojan horses. Make sure you have a periodic computer security audit. For example, in your audit, you should not have Windows XP anymore. You should not have Office 2003 anymore. This software is no longer supported. It's not getting patched. All the vulnerabilities are not getting patched anymore. If you have XP or 2003, you're asking to be hacked. Implement regular data and system backups. Restrict email attachments, block executable files. You want to have an infection and incident response procedure in place. You want to physically shred your paper documents. A lot of businesses will just take their old invoices or reports and throw them in the garbage, which allows for dumpster diving. So hackers who have a malicious purpose will go into your trash can and look through your old documents. You should shred your paper. And make sure that if you have data you're not using, delete the data. And secure delete it. You have to use a special program to overwrite your hard drive to get secure delete. In addition to this, make sure that you physically lock up your devices. Don't leave your smartphones lying out in the open or your other devices. Make sure they're actually locked up. And you lock your office doors so people can't, so the maid who is not authorized to come into that room or a neighbor can't come and see your computer. Lock it up. Invest, pay the money and invest security applications, and those are the key steps for the technology side of the house.
And some other key things, and it kind of goes more on the behavioral side of things, and ties into technology a little bit. One of the things, business is international, and you're going to have that your people in your company are going to be traveling, and when you're traveling, think about, maybe I need to carry my device with me. Keep it on, if you have a laptop, you leave that in the hotel room, especially in certain countries. You're going to find that if they monitor you, you're gone. Again, American business folks are prime targets of other countries who want to emulate what we're doing. They'll be into your hotel room in seconds after you leave, trying to steal everything off your computer. So think about ways you're going to secure that computer. Maybe it's just by you maintaining physical possession of it. Maybe it's locking up in the hotel safe, but you gotta be careful because they have access to that too. So those are just things to think about when you're traveling, because it's a global world now and we're traveling more, and there's some serious vulnerabilities with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so there are some computer security controls that will allow you to know that you are doing things well. And you can find them if you go to the website for the International Council of Cybersecurity. They list 20 different protocols. I'm going to briefly mention 5 of the 20. that I think are particularly important. Number one is you want to inventory all of your authorized and unauthorized devices. So let's go through, look at every device in your network: laptop, PC, server, smartphone, Fitbit, heart rate monitor, whatever you have. Number two, inventory all of your authorized and unauthorized software. So should people be using Dropbox or Google Drive on your business network? Probably not, because Dropbox and Google Drive will allow them to copy business documents to their personal computer very easily, and very personal cloud storage very easily and very quickly. You want to make sure that you have secure configurations for hardware and software on your laptops, workstations, and servers. You want to do a continual vulnerability assessment and remediation. And again, there are many different companies that will help you do this. And you want to have malware defense. Those are the 5 most critical elements that kind of form a basis or a common standard for all companies, regardless of size, on controls for computer security. So there are a couple of interesting trends in security for 2015. And I'm just going to read you a couple of these trends so that you can kind of get a flavor for what's happening. One trend is there's going to be a shift, and it's already happening, from web browsing that's unsecure, which is HTTP, to web browsing that is secure, which is HTTPS. This is a big deal because a lot of hackers, malicious hackers, are using man-in-the-middle attacks based on unsecure web browsing to spoof companies and spoof customers. Secondly, is that small and medium-sized businesses are finally going to adopt disaster recovery as a service. So the data backup for your data on your computer systems, the system backup so you can actually have your servers running. This will be provided in the cloud as a service, and that's a driving trend. Third is small and medium-sized businesses will adopt email encryption. Again, most email, 99%, is sent in the clear, unencrypted, so anybody, anywhere can read it. Encrypted email makes sure that only the recipient can read the email. Fourth, secure mobile devices. Again, make sure bring your own devices are secure. And then fifth, SMBs will stop ignoring payment card industry compliance. So you have your point of sale system, you have your credit card reader, debit card reader, and there are basic security precautions that virtually every small business ignores. Well, after Target and Home Depot and Walmart and other big companies getting hacked, it's become clear that everyone's got to comply with basic security for your point of sale system provided by the payment card industry. Okay, well, those are the main points for technology and for controls and trends. And so the question is, how can Tom and I add value to you? Well, there's a couple of ways. Number one, we can take a step back and take a look at your organization as a whole through fresh eyes. What information does your organization rely upon? What would be most damaging if it fell into the hands of your competitors? Is there something you need to reconsider? These are kind of basic questions that we can come with a background in computer security, military, government, intelligence, and business, and give you an understanding of what's happening in your business. Number two, we can help small and medium-sized businesses adopt basic best practices, which we've mentioned, a whole list of them. We can help you actually put them into play. And then third, we can help with threat intelligence. So threat intelligence can provide you a prioritized list of suspicious incidents by correlating all available information from across the enterprise. So you have your intrusion prevention and detection systems, you have your firewalls, you have your antivirus programs. How do you know which threats are key? We can help you prioritize and figure out which you have to respond to. And then last, and then I'll wrap this up real quickly, are some questions to ask yourself about your business. Well, is your business a sitting duck for hackers who want to steal your corporate data and your customer information? How can you tell? Well, when was the last time that you updated your network security software? Have you ever updated it? Did you buy it out of the box and just never updated it? Is your company's Wi-Fi system secure? Wi-Fi is one of the leading ways malicious outsiders get access to your secure networks. Have you conducted a company security audit in the last 6 months? Do you immediately disconnect a fired or disgruntled employee from access to your company database? And do you do deep background checks on all new employees? Do you store and secure hard drives from old PCs and servers so they do not get into the wrong hands? Do you encrypt your data and use multi-level passwords in your database? Are you aware that some insurance companies will lower their premiums if you have secure data and a protected database? Are you complying with all of your industry's compliance requirements? For example, HIPAA in medicine. Do you know how to determine if your data system has been infected or hacked? Are your firewalls up and current, and do you have a disaster plan in case cyber criminals break into your digital vault and empty out all of your data and confidential information? And the last question, is all of your crucial data backed up every single day? Well, if you want more information about how to use these questions to keep your data safe, contact Tom and me, and we'll be more than happy to help.
And we will put the, this will be, of course, exported to YouTube and other things, and we'll have the contact information there. And for those of you listening, my email is tcoyle1@gmail.com. That's T as in Tom, C as in Charlie, O as in Oscar, Y as in Yankee, L as in Larry, E as in Eric, 1@gmail.com. And Antony?
My email is Antony@AntonyHaynes.com. That's A as in Alpha, N as November, T as in Tango, O as in October, N as November, Y as in Yankee, at Antony Haynes, H as in Hotel, A as in Apple, Y as in Yankee, N as November, E as in Echo, S as in Sierra.com.
Great. Well, thanks for listening. And again, we're happy to answer all your questions. And join us next time.